my God, hey. When she come for the area.
Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm so sorry this video has taken so long. We had a few issues with our camera, but we're good now. So as promised, this is going to be a tutorial on a pencil skirt. I am doing this tutorial with the online pencil skirt, meaning it's not going to have a lining in it. I started with the idea of actually having a lining in it, but I realized it would be a little too complex, so bear with me with the video. I do have a skirt with the lining that I will show you guys at the end of the video, so stay tuned and I hope you enjoy. Okay, so I have my fabric laid out, so we're gonna get started. So to get started, you need your waist measurement, your hip measurements, and the length you want your skirt to be. So I did a 1-inch line from the edge of my fabric. I only did that so that you can make sure that everything that you're doing is accurate. So you measure the length from this line, everything from this line, everything we're going to be doing is going to be, this is going to be our starting point. And then later on we're going to cut this line off, okay? So let's get started. So my hips is 45 inches. So 45 inches ends right about here. But we need 4 darts. We need 2 darts in the front and 2 darts in the back. So we have to add the seam allowance for the darts. So each dart is going to be 1.5 inches. So for the front, we're going to have 3 inches because 1.5 inches plus 1.5 inches is 3 inches. And same for the back. So we have to add 6 inches to the 45. So that puts us at 51. So with that being said, we're at 51 with adding the seam allowance for the darts. And then we're going to add another 4 inches for seam allowance. 2 inches for the front, 2 inches for the back. So we're going to be at 55 with that. And then we're going to add 1.5 inches seam allowance for the zip allowance for the back. So that puts us at 56.5. So 56.5 is right here, which is not the very end of my fabric. You can either cut the fabric off or keep it. It never hurts to have a lot of seam allowance. I'm just going to keep mine. But if you don't want to keep yours, you're definitely more than welcome to cut it off. Now we're going to measure the length of the skirt. It can be whatever length you want. I decided to do mine at 26. So this is at 28. So the 2 inches becomes my seam allowance. You can always cut the selvage off, but you don't have to cut the selvage off if you don't want to, because it's already going to be hemmed anyway. So from this line right here to here is 28 inches, as you can see. But when I hem, it's going to become 26 inches. And I'm going to take another half from the top in order to insert my my waistband. So technically it's going to become 25.5, but that's not a lot of inches off. So we're going to have to separate the front from the back. So like I said, the only difference between the front and the back is the zip allowance that we're going to put in the back. So because of the zip allowance, the front has to be 1.5 inches. The back has to be 1.5 inches bigger than the front. So I'm going to take my ruler and measure 1.5 all the way from this line again to the bottom. And please note that I'm doing all this on the wrong side of the fabric, meaning I'm not doing this in the front of the fabric. It's where the lining is going to cover so that you don't have to see the chalk. Nobody wants to see that in their garments. So there we go. So now I'm just going to shift the top to line up exactly where that line is. Right there. And then we're going to cut to separate the front from the back. Once you have this part done to this point, grab your lining and repeat the exact same steps on your lining. So I'm going to do that with my lining and I'm going to come back. Okay guys, so I have my fabric ironed out, and now I'm going to cut that 1 inch marker off The reason why I like doing the 1-inch marker as a start point is, you see, naturally this didn't fall on it exactly like it's supposed to. Look at the back. And sometimes when you sew, that affects your sewing. So once I have it on top of each other like this, I would naturally go ahead and just cut this off. And now everything is going to be the same. Everything falls the same, front, back. Okay guys, so I have ironed the fabric, and I've already cut off the 1 inch that was up here so that everything will be on the same level and we can get started. I decided not to do this with the lining simply because when I was watching the video, it felt like it was a lot of information. So I just want us to do this one without lining, and I will come back another time and do another pencil skirt video with a lining. So this is what it looks like if you do it with a lining. There is no information that I'm giving you on this that you don't need on this when you're doing the lining. So it's the exact same information. So if you do decide to do it with lining, you just follow the exact steps that I'm going to give you. So this is it with lining. It's just small. It's thicker than when it doesn't have lining. That's the only difference. But you honestly don't need the lining because cotton is pretty thick on its own. So let's get started with creating the contour and the shape of the skirt. So what you need to do is measure 3.5 inches from the fold of the top skirt, not the bottom skirt, because this is just seam allowance for the zipper. So we're going to measure 3.5 from the top skirt. So I'm going to mark it with a chalk. And then from that first chalk mark, I'm going to measure the dart inches, which is the 1.5 that we added when we were cutting the fabric. So that's right here. And after that, we have to get our waist measurement. So mine is 30. So half of that is 15, and half of the 15 is 7.5. Because this is already on the fold and this is already on the fold, we have to divide. You have to divide your measurements by 4, not by 2. So 30 divided by 4 will be 7.5. So you have to measure 7.5 from this mark, and then add the 1.5 inches because we're putting, because you're going to take that part in. So if you don't add the 1.5 inches, it's going to become too small. So technically you have to measure 9 inches because 7.5 plus 1.5 is 9 inches. Just 9 inches. Okay. So 9 inches from the top skirt, not the bottom skirt again. So 9 inches, and then you mark it. So this is your exact measurement. So you can go ahead and add seam allowance from here. I'm going to go ahead and add a 2.5 inch seam allowance. You can do less, you can definitely do more. So I'm adding 2.5 seam allowance. Then from this point, I'm going to go down about 7.5 inches. Ideally, you do 8 inches to decide where to put your hip measurement. But I'm pretty short, so I do 7.5. So 7.5 from here, from the top, 7.5 inches down. Is this missing? Okay. From the top, 7.5 inches down would be right here. So 7.5 inches from the top is right here. Now you're going to do the same for your hip measurement. So now you know the hip measurements comes in down here where you created this mark. So my hip is 45, like I said in the beginning. 45 into 4 is 11.25. So 11.25 is right here. But I'm going to add a 2 inch seam allowance again. So that's going to be 13.25. So that's 13.25. 13.25 is right here. And then after this, I'm going to just connect these lines. I normally use my hip curve, but it's too far from me right now, so we're just going to connect it And then from there, you're just going to go ahead and create a shape. I take, when it gets to the bottom, when it's like at knee length or past my knee, I do about 3 inches or more because you need it to curve in more. But if you're doing a shorter skirt, be mindful of how much shape you create, because your hips is definitely wider than your knee. So if you're going to end it at your knee, the best thing you can do is honestly to measure the circumference of that spot of your body for comfort. But I don't do that. So we're just going to go ahead and cut the shape out. Once we cut the shape out, we're going to create our notches now. So the marks that we made here, we're going to cut it just a little bit. Do the same for the other dart. And then we're going to go back down. I think I lost my measurement. But my 7.5 was where? It was right here. So now I'm going to just notch my 7.5 again. So I know this is where my hip is. You can measure, so this is, you can just decide to do a fold to where your hip measurement is. So exactly half from where your hip is, and do another notch. Just so you make, just so you're making sure when you're sewing, everything is lining up. You don't have to do this notch, but it just helps with the sewing process. So when you get to the bottom, one part is not longer than the other. Because believe me, these fabrics can get away from you. So this is one notch. This is another for the hip. And these are the notches for the darts. I'm going to go ahead and put a notch right here, so I know where my zip starts. There we go. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the back into 2. Because the back is going to be 2 pieces, but the front is going to be just 1 piece. So, to move forward, this is something I do that a lot of people, I don't think a lot of people do, but my dart here, I bring my dart from all the way to the top to the bottom. I don't end my darts 5 inches in. You can end your dart 5 inches in. All you have to do is measure 5 inches from the waist, 5 inches starting from the waist to wherever that is. Put a mark there, put a hole punch, whatever you need to do, and then mark it and then do your darts just to that point. But my darts run all the way to the bottom. What I tend to do is once I pass about the hip measurement, I decrease how much I'm sewing it. So I start from 1.5 inches and it gets smaller and smaller and smaller. So by the time it gets to the bottom, it's probably just 1/4. So I measure just 4 inches from the top skirt again. So about 4 inches right here. And then I'm going to put another notch. So I know that when I'm stitching my dart, it has to end where this line is exactly. So it's going to be something like so. So when I'm stitching, I'm going to be stitching notch on top of notch. So I'm going to stitch all the way from here to there. Okay guys, so now we're going to get on with the sewing part. Guys, so I'm going to put this notch on top of this notch. So like this. See? Like this. And I'm going to be sewing on the wrong side, meaning the back of the fabric. Same for the bottom. Okay? You can iron it to make it flatter for you and easier for you to sew. But I'm not going to iron it. So here we go. So after you pass the 7-inch mark, which is your hip, which is right here, then you can decide to go into 1/4. All the way to the bottom. So both darts are in now. So it starts off, as you can see, it starts off at 1.5 inches, and then it gets skinnier and it goes all the way to the bottom. So we're going to do the exact same thing for the back. Okay guys, so I have the darts in for the front. This is the front skirt. There we go. And these are the 2 back pieces. This is gonna go here, and that's going to go there. You see how everything is lining up? The darts meet each other because they were done at the exact same spot. So it's the bottom ones. That's exactly how you want it to look, and it has to overlap enough for your seam allowance for the zipper. So I'm going to put this to the side, and we're going to go ahead and cut our waistband for the skirt. So the first thing we're going to do is we want a 1 inch waistband. No, 2 inch, sorry guys. We're going to do a 2 inch waistband. So what we're going to do is we're going to measure 4 inches. 4 inches from the top line to this line. I did do the quarter mark and cut it off, the half mark and cut it off as a starting point so that everything is clean. So 4 inches, you mark it, another 4, you mark it, another 4, you mark it, another 4, you mark it, and then you just connect the lines. Okay, now we're going to cut it. We're going to put this one on top of this one and get another one for the back. So just so you can make sure that you're not doing it wrong, start off with the front. So we're going to just grab any of the 2 pieces, put it right here. I want to center it only because I want this shape to be ending up at the same spots, but you don't have to do that. So once you get that, just cut up the excess fabric. I measured 24 inches before I did this. If your waist is bigger, you can do more. I just winged it at 24. So this is gonna go for this, for the front. When you get to the back is a little longer because of the seam allowance for the waist, for the zipper. So what we're going to do at this point is we want the zipper to run through the waistband. We don't always have to do it like that, but for this time we're going to do it that way so that once we all get comfortable, we can try different versions of this waistband. But for this, we're just going to do the one the zipper runs through the waist. So I'm going to put this on top of this. What you need is you need the part where the zipper allowance is to be at least 1/2 inch longer. This side has to line up. The side seam has to line up. But when you get to the center back where the zipper is going to go, you need it to be at least 1/2 inch longer. But it needs to be half an inch longer from where your zipper notches. It shouldn't be 1/2 inch from the edge, because this is technically invincible once the zipper comes in. So you need to add the 1/2 inch from where your notch is. Okay, I hope that makes sense. So I'm going to go ahead and measure. From that point is 10 1/4, which makes sense because the front is 20 and a half. So it's 10 1/4 plus a 1/2 inch. So that's going to be 10 3/4. So I'm going to put this aside, measure 10 3/4, and I'm just going to go ahead and cut it. This is 10 3/4. There we go. So we're going to split this into two for the back. Voila. One is for here. As you can see, this lines up. This lines up with this, but when you put it in, it's exactly 1/2 inch bigger, which is exactly what we needed. Okay? So, the waistband, how to insert the waistband. I'm going to illustrate how to put the waistband with the front, because it will be easier to watch than the back, because the back is 2 pieces, and that can get really confusing. The first thing you have to do is press this. So naturally, if I was doing this by myself, I would go to the iron and I'm going to press this to make sure that everything is lining up exactly like it's supposed to. If it's not, I'm just going to straighten any corners that needs to be straightened. Like this little corner right here, it's not going to affect anything because it was just a little bit. But if it's really off, you should maybe measure again. So once I have this laid out like this, now I'm going to go in and I'm going to measure 1/2 inch, and then I'm going to press it. So I'm going to go to the iron and do this, but I want to show you guys before I do it. So I'm going to measure 1/2 inch. If you need to use your ruler, go ahead and do so. Can't find my chalk. Oh, here we go. But yeah, 1/2 inch all the way. Do it on both sides. And what you're going to do is you're going to press it in the middle first, like this, and then you're going to press the 1/2 inch. So I'm going to go do that, and I'm going to come back and show you guys. Okay guys, so I have gone to iron mine. So if you look at the inside, this is what it looks like. Ideally, you're supposed to have fusing in here, but honestly, I don't have any fusing right now, and I just want to get this video done. So, but put fusing in yours. The fusing is what makes it really thick and strong, so the waistband doesn't wrinkle easily. But and again, before you start to put the waistband in, press your darts to the center front. It shouldn't be towards the side seams. It should be towards the center front, which is the middle of the fabric. Now, how we're going to attach this waistband is we're going to open it out like this, and we're going to take one side like this, and you're going to stitch it 1/2 inch. Use the 1/2 inch marker on your machine to stitch it. So you're going to stitch the first way, whatever the machine does, and then when you're done, you're going to flip it, and then you're going to top stitch it, and it's going to be clean, pretty, and like magic. So I'm going to do mine for the front and the back. And for the back, so for the back, remember the little the extra quarter that the extra half that we added. All you have to do is iron that half in. Okay, when you're doing it, I'm actually gonna go iron it, but I'm only folding it just to show you guys. But iron it for perfection. You iron that half in, and then after you put the zipper, it just kind of sits on it, like you see. I'll show you guys. Okay, so I already have the front waistband in. So this is the back and this is the front. This is what it looks like. This is what it looks like from both sides. So before we put the back waistband, I decided that we should put in the zipper first, so you guys don't get confused. We're going to do a lap zipper. So the first thing that you need to do is match your notches. The notches we did for the waistband, 3/4 seam allowance. So match your notches and then put a pin to secure it in place. So once that's secure, you're going to take your measuring tape and measure 9.5 inch. I do 9.5 inches because I have wide hips, so when I do 8 inches, it's really hard for the garment to go over my hips. So you can do 8 or 8.5. That's perfectly fine. But I do 9.5 for that purpose. So 9.5, and then you do a notch. I already have my notch in, but I'm going to show you guys 9.5 right here. Do a notch. So this is where your zipper is going to end, and then it's going to start from here and end about 1/2 inch from your notch. About 1/2 inch from your notch. It shouldn't be more than 1/2 inch from your notch. So what's going to happen is that since our seam allowance is 3/4, now we're going to take this pin out, and then we're going to grab one side of the skirt. Well, it doesn't really matter which side, but people tend to pick a side they always do it on. So what you do now is you line it up like so, but when you're getting to where your notch is, so first of all, to make it easy for you, just press it at 3/4 all the way to the bottom. I'm kind of familiar with what I'm doing, so I don't necessarily do this step. So with this joined together, I think if I teach you guys this way, it will probably be easier for you. So what you're going to do is you're going to stitch 3/4 from your notch all the way to about, let me see, we're going to leave 7 inches for the split in the back for the ease of walking. So 7 inches plus the 2 inches, that's going to be seam allowance for the hem. So we're marking this at 9 inches, and we're going to put a notch there. So what you need to do is you're going to stitch from here to the notch. So from this notch to this notch is going to be stitched up. And once that's done, you're just going to grab your zipper, and then you're going to start from where your notch is from the top, put it to line up, and then you're just going to stitch it all the way to where the notch is inside your skirt. Mine is right here, so when I get to this part, I'm going to stop. So I'm going to go and sew onto this point, and I'm going to come back and show you guys how to move forward. So I have my zipper, the first half of my zipper in. So just like I told you guys, I stitch from this notch to the notch at the bottom. You can make it split higher if you need to. You don't have to do it as short as mine. It's really up to you. The higher it is, the more comfortable it is to walk in though. But it's up to you. So this is half the zipper done right now. So I stitch at about 1/8 all the way down to where my notch is. Right here, as you can see. Right there. Now what I'm going to do is, like I said, this is a lap zipper. So this side is going to overlap this side. So what's going to happen right now is you can go ahead and pin at this point. I'm going to pin just to show you guys what I mean. But I would not be pinning when I'm sewing. But if you do pin when you're sewing, it helps it stay. So you can press it for perfection. I do press it. So I press it down flat. And that's one of the reasons why I don't pin it. So once it's pressed, I have a line. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew about 1/2 inch. So I'm going to start from here. So I'm going to go this way, 1/2 inch out this way. And then I'm going to go about 1/4 all the way up here. So 1/2 inch across, 1/4 all the way up. You can do 1/4 and 1/4. It's really up to you. And then the zipper will be done. And I'm going to come back with the zipper done. And then I'm going to show you how to insert the back waistbands. And then after that, we just have to join the sides and hem it, and we're done. So the zipper is in now. Here we go. It's called the lap zipper because one overlaps the other. It's clean, simple, done. You can cut the excess off. You don't have to, but you can. And then press this open. I will press it open. I just haven't because I just want to show you guys as quickly as possible. So press this open and then come back and put in your waistband. So before I put in the waistband, I'm going to open up the iron part. So remember, it's on the fold, half and a half. So I'm going to fold this at a half and then put this back down. Please use the iron for this. I will be using the iron. I'm just showing you guys how I do it. And then you're going to open this up, and then you just need it to, and then just proceed as you did the front waistband. Half. Again, we start from the back. We stitch the back first, half in the back, stitch it down, and then bring the other half up to the front, like so. Repeat the same for this side, and then once you finish that, we're gonna go ahead and use our measurements to attach the side seams. Remember, we left 2 inches seam allowance, so if it's easier for you, just get a marker and mark 2 inches all around the edge on both sides. So 2 inches all around the edge. Getting to the bottom from the notch we created here, I would probably do 2.5 just to create more curve. But if you have thicker thighs, maybe the 2 inch is just perfectly fine for you. You can do less and then later on do more. It's really up to you. So I'm going to go ahead and put in the waistband and then join the side seams. And I'm going to come back and show you guys how to stitch the back slit and how to hem it. Alright, so here we are. I've already joined the side seams. So this is me. This is my measurements in the skirt. When you get to this point, I would recommend that you try it on to make sure that it fits like you want. If you want it a little tighter, looser, because measurements work, but sometimes we measure tightly, sometimes we measure loosely. So if you measure tightly, then this would be probably be too tight. It might not be. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how accurate your measurements can be. Fit, it's a different ball game altogether. So I would try it on, make sure it fits like I want before I come into close off the slit that we left off, and then hem the bottom. So there are 2 ways to close up the slit. One of the ways is it's going to overlap just like you did the skirt. So it would be something like this, and you probably just go along this by probably just by a half, come this way, and then that'll be it. But I would do both sides. I would do both sides for you guys so you can actually see the slits really well. So just from your 1/4 inch, you can make a notch at the bottom. I mean your 3/4 inch, you can make a notch at the bottom and then just stitch it at a half, come across at another half, and go down at another half. And then you're going to have your split, and then after that you can go in and hem it, iron it and hem it at whatever your hemming allowance is. If yours is a half, mine was 2 inches, so I'm going to hem it at that. Whatever yours is, that's perfectly fine by me. But don't forget to try it on at this point. The zipper is in. What we're going to do is put a waistband here. I'm sorry, hook and eye here, just so that this can clip in clean and proper. I'm going to show you guys all of that, and I'm actually going to wear this so you guys can see. I did try this on. Personally, I would tick it in just a little bit from the hip down, not the hip up, just to create more of a contour and a shape for me. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch this. Like I told you guys, I'm going to go in half, and I'm going to go over at a half and down another half, and then I'm going to go in and stitch the hem. I'm going to come back and show you guys what it looks like. Okay guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I really hope that it wasn't confusing for you. If it was, please kindly leave a comment down in the comment section. I will gladly answer your questions. If you don't get it, I understand. If you do, that's great. So if you're going to replicate the skirt, please don't forget to DM it to me at BurningDoll_ on IG, so I can write your name down for the giveaway. So right now I'm just going to go over a few things that I want you guys to keep in mind if you do try this. So this is the one that I made with the lining. So this is the insides of that. So One of the good things about having a lining is it just has more structure, but I believe that it's more restricting when you have lining in it. It's harder to walk in and a few little things, but you can use a polyester lining instead of the cotton. I think the polyester is a little bit more free walking. It's free to walk in than this one. So I put fusing in the waistband of this one. That's why it's stiffer than this one. This one can easily bend over. This one, it's stronger. Like, it doesn't really matter. It's really thick because of the fusing that I put in the waistband. If you do it without the lining, some of the slight difference is this is easier to walk in. Very easy to walk in. It's easier to do than the usual. Keep in mind that I did a few things differently from how I would make it professionally, because this is for beginners only. So I will do another video just to show you guys how to cut the skirt, just in case you got confused somewhere along the line. So stay tuned for that. That's going to come before our next tutorial. I added an extension to the waist of this skirt, so you just put a hook and eye, click it, and that's that. But in this case, we're just going to do a hook and eye up here. This doesn't have an extension. I did different things so you guys can actually see that this can be done in many ways, more than one. You don't have to feel like if you do yours in a certain way already, yours is not good enough. How I close the slit in the back. In this case, let me turn this over so it's easier to see. The one without the lining, as you can see, I went ahead and I did a 3/4 stitch all the way across the bottom, along the lines of both sides. Came up here, double stitch back here, and I went back down. But with the one with the lining, I did a lap over. So this part laps over this part, so it's not as open as this. So this one, if it's laying down, it almost looks like it's closed, versus this one. You can do it any way you want. If you guys have any questions, if you're confused about anything in particular, please leave it in the comment section. I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to follow me at Vernon Couture and Vernon.
Oh na na na, oh na na na. Killer beat. Still can promise, yeah. You know what happened? Girl say I take you to Tokyo. Girl I go take you to China. Girl I go take you to London. I go tell them say you I be one gone. Girl I go take you to Lagos, so. Girl I go take you to Ghana. Girl I go take you to Tema. I go tell them say now you be the one gone. I'll tell you who I they love you honest, honest. When I'm out with you say now all night, all night. I'll tell you who I they love you honest, honest. When I'm out with you say now all night, all night. So don't come in once me die, oh no me chance me die, or they will cry me who do to me side all night, all night. So don't come in once me die, oh no me chance me die, or they will cry me who do to me side.